think everyone should be able to see. I will be minimizing your guys' faces for the recording, so it doesn't get in the middle of the recording. So please jump in on chat or speak up if you have a question. You should be automatically muted when you join, so don't forget to unmute yourself if you have a question. All right, so first we're going to talk about the Zoom target audience and how Zoom can be used. I do have to state right here that Zoom is not strictly a social media platform. Zoom is more a communication tool or communication platform. The reason we're including it in this series of webinars on social media platforms is because it can be a tool that librarians can use similarly to social media platforms to communicate and interact with their patrons, especially at this time. So first of all, a short history and the target audience for Zoom. It was started in 2011 by a former Cisco WebEx employee. And in fact, it was started because this employee was unhappy with the way Cisco was developing its WebEx video conferencing tool, and he thought he could do a better job. It was built for businesses of all size who needed a cloud-based, high-quality video communication platform, but it was targeted originally to the IT decision makers of companies. And since then, it's undergone a lot of evolutions. It is built to be a scalable company, and it prides itself on being responsive, a responsive company with excellent customer service. And it really does a great job of providing a lot of help online. And so this is why some of what I'm doing I felt like was maybe a little repetitive. If you want to go to the Zoom company's help pages, you can hear it explained in a slightly different way. Zoom's direct competitor for smaller audiences is Skype. Skype is actually older than Zoom, and I named Skype as the direct competitor because what I mean by smaller audiences is around probably what we have today, around 25 people or less. The direct competitor for video conferencing is Skype. I will note that just in the last couple of weeks, Facebook Video Messenger started allowing more than 2 people in a call at one time. And Facebook Messenger has already done a lot to seamlessly connect their users. And so I have used it a couple of times just to chat more with friends rather than in a business setting. And it works pretty smoothly. The difference is that Messenger was developed for social communication, and Zoom was developed specifically for business communication. So how it can be used, and this is specifically for librarians to think about. It's to be used for online or virtual library board meetings. We've had several libraries use SEK's Zoom account. Club and group meetings. It can be used for your friends group, or maybe you have a teen reading club or a book club. It can be a great tool for them to meet online. It can be used for secure story times. I know a lot of libraries have started using Facebook Live or YouTube Live to stream story times, and that can be a great tool. There are certain considerations if you're using something like YouTube Live that's open to anyone. You have to think about copyright. If you're using Facebook Live, it's limited to people who have a Facebook account and can access your library's Facebook page, which is usually public, so anybody on Facebook. So it's a little bit more secure, and you can manage who is on your page and interacting with you a little bit better on Facebook. Zoom has the option of being the most secure way to do a virtual story time because your participants have to have the Zoom meeting ID or have to have an invite to join. They can't just log into another platform like YouTube or Facebook. And it can be used for smaller interactive programs also. So programs where you definitely want back and forth interaction, and you're not trying to conduct like a 30-person seminar. You're wanting, like a knitting club. You're wanting something where you can demonstrate something. People can give you feedback. All right. We're going to dive into meeting etiquette and interacting with other attendees, which is probably one of the biggest sections besides actually how to use the different functions and features. And there's been a lot written on online meeting etiquette, especially recently with the advent of working from home for so many people. So meeting etiquette, and I've tried to include some pictures and memes here to make it fun. When possible, as host, introduce or acknowledge people as they join the meeting. For those of you who joined the meeting a little bit earlier, hopefully you heard me doing that. I haven't been doing it for people who are joining now because I don't want to interrupt the presentation. But if you're in a meeting where you can wait for everybody to join before you start, it's considered polite to acknowledge people as they join the meeting. As the host, always start the meeting early, wait till everyone has had a chance to leave before ending it. It is possible for you as host to end the meeting before everyone else has exited, but it's considered a little bit rude. It's like kicking somebody out. And test your equipment, camera and microphone before the meeting time. This is another, it can be part of, as a host, starting the meeting early, gives you a chance to test things. If you join the meeting early, you know that I was trying out some audio settings. All right, and as a participant, it's always important to test your equipment before the meeting time. This is a hyperlink. You'll notice if you go back to look at the slides after the presentation, if you click on this hyperlink, it will take you to the Zoom test meeting room that you can use on the Zoom website to test your equipment. You can also find that just by Googling. So do use your video whenever possible, but don't turn on your microphone. Leave it muted when you're not actively speaking. If you guys hear any feedback, it is because somebody has left their microphone on and it's causing a feedback loop. So in this case, as host, I have the privilege to go through and mute. We're going to pause here to wait for the feedback to die down. All right. Okay, I see we're still having some problems. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go through here. Oh, goodness. Candy, I believe it's you that is has the microphone on. I'm going to try to mute you. Oh, goodness. Okay, guys. So, I mean, this is a great example of the problems you can run into. All right, sorry about that. I'm going to try to wait for that to die down, and Candy's going to rejoin us. Okay, so that's a great example of leave your microphone muted when you're not speaking, especially if you're not using headphones. It can cause a feedback loop. Make sure your screen name is recognizable and not something like all or iPad. Sometimes you don't have the power to change this depending on what device you're joining from. If you're joining from a telephone, that can be difficult to change your screen name. But when possible, make sure your screen name is recognizable. This is just polite to your other attendees. All right, and Candy, thank you for joining us. If you could mute your microphone, it's causing a lot of feedback. And if you are having trouble muting your microphone, let me know. Okay, we're going to go on. Make sure you have a clean, safe for work background, and we'll go over how to do virtual backgrounds also. But I will say you'll get a chance to see my actual background, my virtual background that I have up, and also how to change that background. I noticed when people were joining the meeting that some of you had some perfectly acceptable backgrounds. And so we can talk about that as we go through them. Make sure you're dressed appropriately. This is why I put this little comic up. Depending on how your camera is situated and if you plan on getting up at all during the meeting, maybe you only need to have a good shirt on, but make sure you're as well lit as possible. Sit near a window or turn on nearby lamps. You can't see the room that I'm in, but I'm right in front of a window without the sun directly shining in the window, and natural light is always best. Adjust your camera so that it's eye level or pointing at eye level. Having the camera a little bit above you is more flattering, and it's easier for you to not look like you're looking down on someone, literally. Look at the camera when you're talking instead of looking at your screen or at yourself on the screen. This can be a tough habit to break, and I find myself doing it all the time. When somebody is talking, it's perfectly acceptable to look at them on the screen, but when you are trying to talk to somebody else, you have to imagine that they are behind the camera. As a general rule, having something to drink during the meeting is okay, but eating is considered rude. But there's always exceptions to that. If someone has scheduled a meeting close to lunch, pointing at myself, and you just really need to eat or drink, first of all, make sure you're on mute because we can all hear you drinking or crunching. But then also just say, hey guys, I'm sorry, I need to eat, and hopefully the meeting etiquette is such that you can do that. All right, interfacing with other attendees. So here's the big one, and probably the most important. Learn to add pauses so that you're not talking over other attendees. The miracle of modern technology is that we are connecting from great distances, but keep in mind that your signal has to probably go up to a satellite and bounce back down. So it's going to take a couple seconds. It's really great that we have this way of meeting virtually so that it feels as much like we're meeting in person as possible, but we're not meeting in person. And so you need to learn to add pauses so that you're not talking over other attendees. Give everyone a chance to talk. This is more instruction for host of the meeting rather than participants, but it's still good for participants to remember your manners and give everyone a chance to talk. Use the chat box for information that isn't urgent or links to websites that it would be ridiculous to try to speak out, or questions that aren't immediately pressing but that you want a record of having been asked. And allow grace for your fellow attendees if they're calling in from home, which I think most of us are right now. I don't know if any of you have seen the video that this is taken from, but this is actually from about a year ago. This gentleman was calling into a cable news show, and his toddler and baby toddled into the room behind him. Anyway, it's an amusing video if you have a chance to look it up. We're going to go to live demonstrations because I can talk about all these things, but they're not going to stick until you see them happen. And we're going to go, I have a list here that we're going to go through. And Zoom offers instructional videos of what we're going over today, or at least a lot of what we're going over today. So that's indicated by the hyperlinks below. So we're going to take a look at this list, but then we're going to exit the presentation to actually go through this list. If you have a chance to go through the slideshow later, when it's posted, you can check out these hyperlinks that will take you directly to the videos or instructional pages on the Zoom website. So we are going to exit full screen here. And the first one we're going to talk about is joining the meeting. Now, I'm going to open up a different browser to do this, but to join the meeting, give it a second here. This is my secondary browser that's obviously not my default. You can either go to a link that's been provided. So if you remember the flyer that we sent out, the link was provided on the flyer. You can go directly to that link, So you could copy and paste. And it'll ask you in Firefox, this is what it looks like. Open link. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to, well, no, I am going to do it. We'll see what happens. So it'll ask you if you want to join a meeting. And this one, let's see. Let me do that again. Okay. I'm gonna say open link. And I think it's not liking this because I'm already using the Zoom application on my computer. I'm already joined the meeting, and so it's preventing me from joining twice, which is what I suspected it would do. From here, you would click join meeting. I think you guys all have done this because you've all joined the meeting. So I'm not going to go through it anymore from here. What I am going to say is that Zoom has a tutorial that on their website that you can watch. The hyperlink is in the slideshow. So we'll go on to, I think, more important things, namely changing your screen name. So to change your screen name, my controls are going to be up at the top because I am sharing my screen. These controls, or at least something that looks like these controls, should be towards the bottom of your screen if you mouse towards over the bottom. They're hidden until you move your mouse over them. So to share your screen, excuse me, to change your screen name, you'll want to go to where you can see a list of your other participants, and you'll want to go to your name. Here we are. And those three little dots, when you mouse over your picture or your name in the gallery view or the active speaker view, it'll give you different options. One of them is rename. So if you click on rename, it will give you a chance to change your name and to remember your name for future meetings. This saves it to the local computer. I'm not going to rename myself because I already have a correct name. But if you have this option, if you're doing it from a desktop or from certain mobile devices like iPads, that is how you change your screen name. So the next thing we're going to go through is muting and unmuting yourself. This, once again, is going to look a little different for me because I'm the host and I'm sharing my screen. But one of those options, when you mouse over the options at the bottom of the screen, is going to be a microphone icon. Excuse me. This is where you can mute and unmute yourself. So in this case, and now you can hear me. The other shortcut way to do it, if you're mousing over your picture in the meeting, there's the mute button, and it's pretty front and center there. You can mute and unmute from there also. As a meeting host, when there is an option to press space and hold down the space bar to talk like a walkie-talkie. I don't have that feature turned on, but that is a feature that you can use. And here's another option. Right now, on my screen, I have, I don't know that you can see, but I have everyone in gallery view. You can change that view. And I'm going to stop sharing for a second and walk you through it vocally, because there's no way I can share it on the screen. It'll show in the recording if you go back to watch later. So right now, if you look at the upper right hand of the meeting screen, it says speaker view, not completely over in the upper right, but towards the upper right. If you click on speaker view, it'll take you to, or it might say gallery view. So if you're in speaker view, it'll show in a big picture the person who is actively sharing their screen. This is the person whose audio is sharing the most. And so Candy, if anyone is in speaker view, Candy, you're the one we see because your audio is turned on as well as mine. I should say your microphone is turned on as well as mine. You can override this. Well, you can choose to go to gallery view, which is what most people do, by going once again to the upper right and finding the little grid of 9 dots. And if you hover over it, it says gallery view. Changing this will give you a view of everybody who's participating. For those who are not sharing their video, it'll just have their screen name. You can, I'm gonna hide the chat there. So the other thing that you can do with under those 3 dots on, if you hover over your picture, those 3 dots, you can pin your video. And you are seeing this on the recording, even if you can't, what you're seeing on your end is probably just a picture of my face, because as host, I can choose to pin my video, which means my video is the only one that'll show up when I'm talking. On your end, I'm not sure that you have the privilege to pin your video, but that's an option to remember if you're a host. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen so that we can go on to the next item on the list. Hello, everyone again. Aha, okay, hello, everyone again. All right, so that was switching between gallery and active speaker. The fun one that we're getting to is using virtual backgrounds. Right now, the background that I have, if you are seeing my face on the screen, is a picture of, it's illustration of some books. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing my screen again. Sorry, guys. So that you can see it on the recording, but you should also be able to see it in the meeting view. If you go towards the bottom, the microphone is at the very bottom left, and right next to it is a video camera icon, and there's a little up caret next to video, the video icon. When you click on that, it'll give you options to select a camera, change your video settings, or choose a virtual background. So right now, my normal background looks like this. So I clicked on choose virtual background, and I clicked on none. And so as you can see, it's a spare room behind me. Not particularly exciting, probably safe for work. And if I wasn't hosting a meeting, this would be fine. But to change it, you want to go to the bottom to click the little caret next to the video icon, choose virtual background, and you can choose a couple of different, you can choose, pictures that you have saved to your computer. There is a little plus button that says add image or video. And that's where you can add images or video from your computer to use as a virtual background. So you will need whatever you want to use as your virtual background saved on your computer. I will caution you to not cheat the system. Some people have made video recordings of themselves paying attention in meetings, looped it, and then uploaded it as a virtual background and left the room. So kudos to those people that can manage technology like that. Please don't do that. So here are a couple of different options that I had for, there's the Trinity Library in Dublin, the image that I was using before, and I did have another image to show you how to do that. If you click on the plus next to the choose virtual background, go to add image and choose one from your computer. So here's another image that I had, and I will go ahead and leave that up. If anybody recognizes what that's from, there's a little amusement for you. Any questions so far? Remember, you'll need to unmute yourself to talk, and you can also save questions to the end. That's fine. I was going to go over a few options as host that you can do. So as host, let's see, there are options to, I don't know that it's showing up on your end, but it's showing up on my end. When you are screen sharing, there are options to manage your participants. And you can see everyone who's logged in, who is muted, who's not muted, who's sharing their camera, who's not sharing their camera. Down at the bottom, there's an option to mute all or unmute all. That's kind of the nuclear option, shall we say. There's also options to, let's see. There's also options to, when you're sharing, to stop video, stop sharing. You can also lock the meeting after everyone has joined. This prevents anyone else from joining. This is a great security option if you're using a Zoom meeting to hold something like a story time and you want to be careful about who is joining. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing again. And so hopefully in the recording, you'll be able to see what this all is. But there's options down at the bottom too. So as host, we were going over muting and unmuting, sharing screen, which I just did. If you are the host, down at the bottom of the screen, there's a share screen button. And let's see if I'm gonna go back to sharing screen. Okay. And the other one that what I was going to go over is sharing host privileges. So what I'm going to try to do is share host privileges with someone. The way you do that as host is either from manage, you go to manage participants and then you can choose someone. If anybody has, anybody wants to volunteer, I can give them host privileges. But I think I'm going to go ahead and choose, let's see, who do I want to choose? I think I'm going to go ahead and choose Brandon. You hover over his name, there's an unmute option, which I'm going to unmute you, and a more option, and I'm going to make you a co-host. And it'll ask, do you want to make Brandon the co-host of this meeting? And say yes. So it's that simple. Brandon, I'll go ahead and leave you as co-host, but this gives you certain privileges, so use them responsibly. And then also recording the meeting, which we're doing right now. You do that, yes, well, you do that when you are in the meeting, not sharing your screen, and there's a record button at the bottom. It's pretty recognizable, and you just press record. All right. So a note on meeting security. I'm going to go ahead and get these out of the way for the recording. Do not share the meeting link or meeting ID number on unsecured social media or post it on your website. What I mean by unsecured social media, if you've made a private event on Facebook so that only people who have accepted the invite to the event can see postings in the event, you could, for example, share it there. Otherwise, I would only share it in email. And don't post it on your website unless you're employing other security measures in your meetings, such as requiring a participant ID or a password, or employing the waiting room like we did. Consider using a waiting room to admit attendees one by one. The drawbacks to this are that you just see the person's screen name who is in the meeting, in the waiting room. So it's dependent on that person putting in a screen name that you recognize. And be very careful about who you share host privileges with. I trust Brandon, so I shared it with Brandon, but you want to be careful about who you share host privileges with. In an effort to be respectful of your time and my time, we are at the end of the presentation part. I'm going to make this big again so that maybe you can see it. Here we go. We have resources and further reading, a lot of articles on Zoom meeting etiquette. Take a look at. These will be available in the slideshows afterwards, but there you can get a glance at some of them. The most amusing one I thought about etiquette was the Zoom etiquette from Emily Post's very chill great-great-granddaughter from vulture.com. That was a fun read. And then also a couple of documents about the growth of Zoom as a company from Forbes magazine, a document from Zoom on securing your Zoom meetings that has more information than I gave here on securing your Zoom meetings, and also the Zoom video tutorials main page if you want to explore all of the tutorials that they have available. So with that being said, we are down to our questions and wrap up. And and my final picture that I came across in putting things together for this presentation that I quite enjoyed, if you're a fan of art history at all. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the share screen, and I'm going to stop the recording here, and we'll get to our Q&A.